Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting 3-minute game of chess going up against Mr. Shagback. And we got to get some rating points back, so you know what we're going to do. We're going to hit him with an Elephant Gambit, and we are going to win with one of the same traps that we win literally every single game with. And the only reason I am... Oh, wait, look at this. It's the other move. It's knight to f3. The only reason that I can maintain my rating is that every other game I'm black, and so I get to play the Elephant Gambits and win half of my games. So let's see how this works out. This is like an Urisov Gambit, but I haven't put the bishop on c5. I've in one move put it here, which means now I'm able to actually swing over and go in for some sort of massive kingside attack. And there's a lot of interesting attacking ideas. One is that if h3, usually I can either consider bringing this piece in, but usually also just taking h3 is very, very strong. Now here, I suppose I'll bring my last piece in. Oh, there is a cool idea, honestly. I want to come here. I'm trying to take this guy. So he defends the knights, but now how does he get all the pieces in? One cool idea is g5 bishop here, which might still be viable even in this position. So now this just simply doesn't make sense. So let's play g5. And do I actually play this move? What a wild move to play. Or do I don't know, try to just go for some direct sort of attack? I mean, I have here, takes, here. I'm not sure. It's just kind of wild. Why don't we start with this and then consider what we're doing from there? So I'm hoping that they take and open up the G file. But I don't think that that's, well, I guess that is what we're going to see. So let's see if I was bluffing or not. They move all the way out of the way. Seems like a reasonable thought to me. Here, if takes, the idea of this generally is that they can't put something there, and then I'm always threatening to take. I don't actually know why it doesn't work. I just don't want to take this thing. Let's start with this. Maybe I should use the other guy to try to take this bishop at some point. I'm just waiting for this knight to move away. I don't see any reason why I should actually force the matter. It's very interesting. It's so interesting. Let's bring a rook up, just in case there's ever any very clever ideas, you know, such as trying to set up some sort of queen sack that doesn't seem to work just yet, but we might be able to make it work. If I had this guy here, then this actually might work. It'd be very close to working. I'd be threatening to like take and then do a queen sack. So we're very close to making some very, very, very big threats. Let's just make sure we do this right. So now I can go here, though. Maybe the rook would move. Let's start with this. This pawn is hanging, which might be important because the bishop does obviously want to try to get back into the game. Because the bishop coming here is just one extra defender. But I can go here. And then I can go here. This is a mistake. Cool. All right, so I was setting up for this little trick. And it appears that it's working here because my rooks are covering the G file. So after rook takes, knight takes is going to be checkmate. That was a really fun one, and I assume quite a lot was missed. And I honestly have a lot to learn about this line because this is the Elephant Gambit. And the line that you just saw is what most people report to me is actually what they are facing most commonly. So let's actually take like a pretty deep dive here and let's try to understand exactly what we just witnessed. Now, this is the Elephant Gambit. It's a very dubious weapon. And after knight takes or pawn takes, I'd like to play knight to f6, and then usually what happens is they take the second pawn, and then I play queen to d5. Now, I have made so many videos on it, and it is actually very rare that I run into an opponent that plays knight to f3. So every time I do, I'm probably going to post a video on it, just because I know that this is what a lot of lower rated players, or I guess whatever rating my viewers tend to be, whatever you guys are always like, knight f3, knight f3, knight f3, what do you do? And this is kind of what you do. You play for some massive attack, and I'm sure I made a lot of mistakes, but let's pop this guy on and let's see what we're doing. Computer actually gives a decent advantage here to white, but I played bishop to g4 with the general idea that I'm going to be ahead in development. I'm going to get all of my stuff out and I'm going to play for an attack, and that is exactly what happened. Bishop to e2, knight to c6, and then instead of d4 or castles or knight to c3, these are all kind of the common moves, my opponent played c3, which in the Urasov Gambit, this is a very normal plan. So if this were a completely different line as white, we're basically doing exactly this. You can start with knight f3 or bishop to c4. There is a line that you can play here that goes knight takes e4, queen takes d4. So you can see kind of the parallels. A knight has taken, the queen is taking back. And you get to a position like this where the bishop is already on c4. Well, the line that we're playing with black is basically an Urasov Gambit. But the difference is I haven't put this bishop on c5. So here, instead of going to c5, I'm able to go to d6, which actually aims directly at the king side. So if white follows up with castling kingside at any point, I'm already threatening him with a very strong and massive attack. So I castled here, and the most played move here is actually castles, and this is now very, very promising. You can see that the computer now gives an advantage to black. It's possible that white should prioritize maybe waiting, maybe trying to set up to at least make it look like you're going to castle queenside, but if they do decide to go on the king side, you can do basically what I just did. I brought the queen over right away, which isn't necessary, but I was ready to meet h3 with takes. This was at least my idea. Of course, I could start by bringing a piece in, another rook in, and centralizing that as well. But after this, my opponent didn't play h3. And here I was debating just bringing this in, which is an interesting idea. Because now if they take, you're able to go here. And if somehow you're ever able to remove this knight, you're going to be checkmating the opponent. And I don't know, like just look at it. You also maybe have some ideas of some future similar stuff like what we did. We're just simply down a piece here, and the computer says black is just better. We also have threats here, I guess, too, as well. So if here, bishop to h2, and then you move your bishop back somewhere, bishop to e5 is the funniest, threatening to bring this guy in. And this is all just like really good stuff for black that can be really hard to sort out for both you and the opponent. But my opponent played g3, and after this, I suppose they're just losing. And the other line that I wanted to show, after h3, is that if I take here, this doesn't quite work out for black, but maybe it's all right. Computer was somewhere at the +1. Now that it's really calmed down quite a lot. Because after this, you would have to play queen to h4. But it's, what the heck is happening? So white can go on a spree, like just some of these lines, but then you can take here. What the heck is happening? And then the only move is to actually take this. I mean, how is a real human being meant to sort this out? Of course, this is equal. I mean, it's ridiculous, crazy stuff. But I think in practice, a line like this is much, much easier to play with black. And after this, my opponent is actually in severe trouble. So I bring my rook out. My threat is to take this bishop and then take this knight. So my opponent, I thought, would need to block with a bishop to e3. And then I was trying to figure out here if g5 works. So if g5, the opponent can't actually take this. Better is apparently knight to d5. Knight to d5 also makes a tremendous amount of sense. I probably would have gone with g5, with the idea that if the knight takes, then you're hanging this bishop. And if the bishop takes, then we can go through with our idea of taking this bishop and then taking on f3. So this was the kind of stuff that maybe I was going to try to get myself into if he had gone here. But instead, we saw the knight go to d2. So I guess doubling one way or another. Somehow doubling seems to be very promising. But I went with g5. Not the best move, but it did get very interesting. Rook to e1. Bishop to here. This move is fine. Bishop f4 is actually given as one of the decent moves. Of course. Oh, there it was. There it is. There it is. I did it. I did it. It just took the computer. We let Stockfish. Stockfish finally caught up with me. Just give it a minute. It's an amazing idea. And here, perhaps it's very dangerous for the opponent to take and open this file, which they did quite happily. Maybe something like king to g2. But then I'm able to take this. Bishop takes. Again, we're doing everything we can to remove defenders here. And then rook to d5. I guess the idea is to play rook here? This is wild, wild, wild stuff. Rook here. The idea is to go here first, and some eventual rook f5. I mean, it's just kind of brutal stuff. Just go in for the attack and try to find some tactics. If you really want to know how to study this, do some tactics. But let me tell you, taking and opening this file is very, very dangerous. The king tried to run away now, and I really wanted to go here, because the idea is that if you go here and here, you're threatening to take this bishop, and it seems very hard for white to stop this. I just didn't go for it because in my head I'm like, I don't want to go here now because I don't want to allow my opponent to trade. But actually after this trade, you notice it's very difficult to get this bishop into the game. And it's really hard to stop me from taking your bishop. So I guess this just wins. I should have gone with my gut. Instead, I decided to bring this rook over, which is still fine, but no longer as good. And the knight went back. Rook to g1 is much better. Then I can bring this guy over, threatening to take this bishop again. But instead, the knight went back. He is having all of these problems with his knight. Rook to g6 is correct. The opponent brought their knight in. Knight to e4 is the only winning move. And after rook to f1, you bring the other rook in. Bishop to h3 is apparently also very playable. But now after this capture, the opponent walks into a mate. And this is why it's very difficult to play white, because obviously you want to get rid of this pawn. You want to be able to protect it. But I do have a trick based on trying to take this knight and delivering this mate. So this move wins. It doesn't actually matter how you take back. They took with the bishop. If you take with the knight, I can play queen takes f3. And after this, rook to g1. And then I could have gone here. This would have been really, really, really sweet. But instead, my opponent went here, which makes it a little bit simpler. I take the knight. They resign, because if you take back, I go here, and this is checkmate. So I hope you like that one. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of how to attack in the Elephant Gambit. If your opponent goes back to f3, please make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you guys for the next chess video.